Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Outlook with me, your host Mohammed Shafiq, live from our studios here in Manchester. Wherever you are watching this, whether it's on Sky Channel 743, we're on social media, various platforms including YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. And alternatively, if you're watching this around the world on satellite, a very warm welcome and good evening to my program. And we are gathered, if you like, at this moment because it's an historic moment. We've seen a rampant rise of Islamophobia and racism and bigotry that has been normalized, not just in our politics and in our media, which we're used to over these many years, but actually now that the covert racism has become normalized and an everyday. Last week, I put a post up about my activities in my hometown of Rochdale. And in the space of an hour, the amount of racist and Islamophobic comments that attracted was scary, because we fear that we are seeing a return to what our elders went through in the 70s and 80s. That rampant racism that had no cover and was always in your face. And that's why it's so important that as we reflect on the challenges that we faced in the 21st century, that we don't forget that racism is amplified a million times on social media. Platforms like X, which are run by Elon Musk, and others like Facebook, have a responsibility to ensure that these spaces are safe. And the sad reality is they don't do that. One person who's been consistent in standing up for the British Muslim community for many decades, he's been a towering figure in our community, an activist, a leader, both in Yorkshire, but also nationally as a government advisor on anti-Muslim hatred. He's a man who doesn't need an introduction, but he's a very good friend. He's a role model. He's somebody I look up to in this field, and it's really powerful conversation we're going to have. As always, if you want to join the conversation, if you've got any questions for our guest, the number is 0161 529 9455. That's 0161 529 9455. Let's give Iqbal Bana. The number is on the screen, as you can see there. I had to read it on the bottom and I could have read it on the screen, but anyway, I will learn that by heart shortly. Let's give a very warm welcome to the one and only Iqbal Bana. He is distinguished for another reason as well, aren't you, Iqbal? That we've spoken on 3 different platforms, 3 different TV channels. This is my 3rd such platform that we're having a conversation, and it's a great honor to have you on. Assalamu alaikum, brother Iqbal. I can't hear you. I don't know if there's... Okay, well, come back to you in a second, because I think we can't hear you. I can see your lips moving, but we can't hear you. But as always, it is fearful times. We are seeing hatred, but also a lot of fake news that is being peddled. I don't know if you've seen the story today of that hero, Pakistani man, who found a young woman after a night out who had been dumped on the road, and he agreed to give her a lift and take her safely home. And when he dropped her off at her home, she tried to hug him, and he didn't want to hug because obviously he was religious. And then she made a false allegation of rape against him, and he was arrested in a cell for 40 hours. And my point in telling you about that is that there's lots of fake news out there as well, and we've got to be very careful. And as we head into Ramadan, to make sure our masajids have the necessary support and security. Iqbal, assalamu alaikum. I hope you can hear me now.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear, sir.
Oh,
How are you doing?
Subhanallah.
It's been a while.
It's been quite a while, and your introduction was totally non-deserved. But I followed
Every single word was deserved. The good thing about you were so humble about your achievements and your contributions. It just demonstrates, if you look at the life of the Sahaba and you look at the life of the awliya and the men of Allah who've come before us, who would, वो कहते हैं ना कि जिंदगी आजिज़ी में गुजारते हैं, and you're one of those beautiful souls. That's why you're such a beautiful person. So I'm really excited. I buttered you up And now we're going to get on to the tough questions.
This is time for slaughter. I hope not.
First of all, I mean, what's your reaction? I mean, we are seeing rampant Islamophobia. We've seen a political crisis in Westminster with the shenanigans over Keir Starmer, Peter Mandelson, Morgan McSweeney, who resigned today. When you look at the politics in Westminster, and then you look at the politics and the issues in your community of Dewsbury, how vast and different are they?
I don't think they're very vast, to be honest with you. We are in a situation now. I mean, God help us, Allah bachai. As the Chinese proverb goes, may you live in interesting times. Some say it's a curse, and some say it's a blessing. I think at the moment it's a curse for the Muslim community, because what we're facing at this moment in time, as you said, is totally unprecedented. I mean, I remember in the 70s when I was very young, we dreaded going to school, or the last day of school was a nightmare for us, because on the last day of the school we used to get, there was very few of us in the school anyway, and we used to get beaten up, and the teachers who were supposed to there to protect us were never there to protect us. They were just turned a blind eye. But much more worse was the police, that when the police came, when they were informed, again they were sort of basically turned a blind eye. And it seems like we are now moving towards that stage again. May Allah protect us. It is really, really difficult and challenging. And we see on a day-to-day basis, as you said, rampant racism, rampant Islamophobia. And as Baroness Abbasi said, not many years ago, that Islamophobia is now past the dinner table test. A lot of people dismissed what she said, but unfortunately it is now coming true. And the politicians, they are equally as guilty in my opinion. Rather than setting a tone of tolerance and respect, they seem to be, again, closing their eyes, covering their ears, because they don't want to get involved in this debate. And we have seen even the mainstream parties, even people like the leader of the opposition, use immigration as a stick to beat all the communities we have at the moment, and particularly obviously the migrant communities who are coming through, from some very, very desperate situations.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Kemi Badenoch here. She's the first conservative leader who has not put out Ramadan messages or Eid messages. She got elected last year for the first time, and she decided she wasn't going to put out an Eid message or a Ramadan message. And you obviously got reform as well, which we can talk about a bit later. You talked about racism, your experience of racism. I mean, I know you're not as active on social media as I am.
No, I'm not.
It's like it's racism on steroids on social media.
Yes, and this is something that we've been flagging up for many years now. I mean, I was deputy chair of the government's hate crime advisory group, which was looking at hate crime across the whole board: race, disability, gender, sexual orientation, etc. And we are seeing the growth of social media and the evil of social media when it comes to hate. And we've been flagging this up for years, but unfortunately the government completely sort of was blinded to this issue. And they use the laws of the land, which says that if something has been posted from abroad, we cannot touch it. And it's one of those things that, Ofcom is now looking at this issue. But again, as far as I'm concerned, Ofcom has proved to be a toothless tiger, because they may have the rules, but they haven't got the ability or the willingness to actually apply the rules. And we've seen this happen across a broad spectrum of things as well. And as you see, the court case that is going on at the moment in the High Court with the celebrities, including the Prince Harry and Doreen Lawrence, there seems to be a reluctance to try and sort of rein back some of these social media, public media, the press media from undertaking some of these nefarious activities.
I mean, you just think about, let's just talk about GB News, because clearly you see the complaints that are being made on many scales, but you saw recently a horrific program. They're sort of, as I said, Islamophobia and racism was something that wasn't on the TV screen. It existed because of our lived experience, but now you have a television channel that 24/7 is just there to demonize
Exactly.
Islam and Muslims, you know, pull out stories that put us in a bad light. If it's not how we dress, if it's not how we eat, if it's not how we travel, it's, you know, it's absolutely everything, and it's non-stop, and Ofcom are not doing anything.
Unfortunately, they're not, and that's the problem. And also, we had the same issue with the Society of Editors for years and years and years. We complained about the way the print media was portraying Muslims, and you know, when I was deputy chair of the government's hate crime advisory group, we asked on a number of occasions to have a meeting with the Society of Editors to try and sort of talk to them about the impact some of these articles are having on the Muslim community and the well-being of the Muslim community, but they refused to meet us because, you know, it was not in their interest. And this is something that has been going on for many, many years. And we've seen successive governments, including Labour, you know, allowing this state to remain and not challenging what was happening in our communities. And one of the responsibilities of government is to measure the temperature of our communities, to see who is vulnerable, who is likely to be the victim, and what we need to do to try and make sure that, you know, we have the well-being of the community is paramount. And yet successive governments have failed to do that, in my opinion, over the past 25, 30 years in particular.
Yeah, I wanted to give you a snapshot of anti-Muslim hate. It was a report that was launched by the Centre for Media Monitoring, which is part of the Muslim Council of Britain. And they did this extensive research over 2 years, and it's really interesting for the viewers as well to know this. They found that over a 2-year period, Iqbal Bhai, GB News mentioned Muslims or Islam 17,000 times, accounting for 50% of all mentions on UK news channels.
That does not surprise me. I mean, it seems like news channels like that are particularly focused about creating hate and division. And there's no doubt about that, you know, from, you know, what you've just read out and what people have witnessed and what people have seen for themselves on the platform. And we know that there are others who are actually goading these, you know, giving fuel, oxygen to these type of media, and they want to see more and more hate and division because they thrive on it. That is the only platform that they have at the moment. There's no doubt about it. And
I took a decision. You know, I do the mainstream media a lot over many, many years, but I took a principled stance not to appear on it. I'm boycotting it because I think if you go on that platform and one, it's clickbait, they will try to humiliate you and make you look stupid. And then secondly, the rampant Islamophobia is kind of normalized and it's not a safe space for people.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember many, many years ago, I came across a gentleman called Professor Chris Allen.
Yeah, I know.
And he did a study. He did a study of some print media over a whole 1 year period, and he looked at all the articles that appeared in all the print medias over that 1 year period. He then looked at the, you know, what the articles were saying, but he did a survey of people, and I think 2,000 people responded to the survey, mainly non-Muslims, and he asked them the question, you know, where do you get your information about Islam and Muslims? And 2,000 people responded, and I think over 80% said that they got their knowledge about Islam and Muslims from the print media, and this is going back many, many years ago. And then he looked at the articles themselves, and he discovered that nearly 87% of the articles which had information or anything to do with Islam or mention of Islam, 87% of the articles were actually false, they were wrong, and had untruths in them. So you got a huge majority of people getting the information about Islam and Muslims from the print media, and over 80% of the articles were misrepresenting Islam and Muslims as it stands. So, you know, this is a huge problem that's been going on for many, many, many years.
You've been in the room when successive Home Secretaries have talked about tackling racism, xenophobia and Islamophobia. We have Dominic Grieve QC, who was the former Conservative Attorney General, senior Conservative MP, widely liked and respected across the political spectrum. He was the chair of this government committee looking at a formal definition of Islamophobia. I don't know if you have any insight into what's happened, but it is being reported in the media that they're going to do away with the term Islamophobia and replace it with anti-Muslim hatred. What's your reaction to that, if that is true?
Well, I've heard similar things as well, and the Muslim community, I think, is fed up of definitions and sound bites. What we really want is government to take action against hate against Muslims. Right now, Islamophobia was a term that was originally came from the Runnymede Trust report many moons ago, which I'm sure you'll be very familiar with. And anti-Muslim hatred was the term that the government used when the Tory party first came in after the first election victory after Labour, that they set up this anti-Muslim hate crime advisory group, of which I had the privilege of sitting as well and as an advisor. That's when that came up. And I think we've got to that stage now. I don't care what you call it, just do something to tackle the hatred that is being absolutely thrown at the Muslim community across all the political platforms, as well as all the media and social media platforms. And like you say, people like Mr. Musk, who stands next to Tommy Robinson on the one hand, and on the other hand, he's talking about protecting women and girls. But we've seen that his own media platform has been instrumental in denigrating women and girls as well. So there's this hypocrisy that is going on.
And he's in the Epstein papers as well, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
He's not. I mean, obviously, there is no allegation that he was involved in Epstein's crimes, but the fact he was in communication and visiting the island, we don't know if that was true yet. I think you really hit an important point there, Iqbal, of governments who are thinking about this. I cannot remember that when the Jewish community wanted a definition of anti-Semitism, that any government would have pointed a finger at them and said, right, we're going to do away with the term anti-Semitism and replace it with anti-Jew hatred, for example. There would have been an uproar, but it seems to be normalized. Why do politicians, policymakers, decision makers think it's okay to do that with the Muslim community?
I mean, I think there's several layers to that question. I think one of the things is that one of my concern has always been that we have nearly 3 million Muslims in this country, and the number of the Jewish community is less than 500,000. Yet proportionately, as you said, they have a huge sort of power base in this country, and that is partly due to the politics and the economy of this country as well. And we Muslims, we need to learn from the way the Jewish community has structured itself. And good luck to them. They've done very well, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think what we're
not criticizing them, are we? We're actually wanting to copy what they've done and say it's a successful model that we should adopt.
I'm congratulating them, for what they've achieved. Now, obviously, they've been here many years before we did, in terms of immigration. But what we need to do is we need to learn from the best, and I remember when I joined the Home Secretary's team on the Anti-Muslim Hate Crime Advisory Group, the Jewish community were getting funding from the Home Office over many years under the CST's banner to protect the places of worship. Whereas, the Muslim community and others were not getting anything. So we then raised this issue about, the Muslim sort of places of worship were being attacked, and we wanted a level playing field. And one of my colleagues, Karim Shakur, Allah bless him, he worked very hard because he was delegated to do this. And in the first year, when they set up the fund, there was £800,000 set up to provide to the Muslim community. We then had complaints from other faith groups to saying, what about us? We felt fine, they equally need protection as well. And the first year, the majority of the grant security did not go to the Muslim community for all sorts of reasons. Because one of the reasons we were given by the Muslim community was they were frightened of the implications of prevent if they took money from the government, which I think was a legitimate worry that people had. But over the years, obviously that amount of money has gone up substantially. But we've also seen at the same time the government being very protective about who they want to consult in the Muslim community. And it seems that they are willing to talk to people who are yes persons, yes man and yes woman, rather than people who will give them what the reality is at grassroots level. Because the reality is that it tells them what people like you and me will tell them, but they don't want to listen to us. They only want to
I
listen
mean,
to
I've kind of
people.
given up. I've given up on that. I don't know about you, Iqbal, but I just feel it's a, effortless attempt by the government and policymakers, decision makers, to kind of target a particular community and tell us what we can say, what we can't say. Yes, we're going to invite you into a room. No, we're not going to invite you in the room. And I don't know, maybe I'm just getting a bit more mature now. I just feel absolutely not. I'm happy to just do my activism in the community, do my professional work, and leave it at that, because I don't think we're going to get justice and fairness from these politicians.
I mean, I've been politically active and fighting injustice across all forms of hatred, since 1975 basically, right? When I was a young man.
You're still a
when
young
I was
man.
young. Thank you. But when I was about 70, in 1975, I was just about 17, 18 years old. And if they can find a video, Yorkshire TV may have it. I actually sort of helped a white couple move into an empty council terrace because they were homeless, right, with some of my other friends, and because they claimed squatters' right then. So that was my activism in those days. I'm like you, now at the age of nearly 70, you feel like all my life I've been battling and battling and battling, and we don't seem to be getting anywhere. And I'll be honest with you, you may not like this, or some of your viewers may not like what I'm about to say, but I blame our Muslim politicians. I remember going on DMTV, which used to be from Manchester, many years ago, and it was prior to the election that Tony Blair won. And I was sat in the studio, right, and they had three other guests, all councillors from Bradford, from each of the political parties, and I was supposed to be there as a political analyst. And while we're having this debate and discussion, I asked them a simple question: कि तुम Tory से हो, तुम Labour से हो, तुम Liberal Democrat से हो. So you represent three communities, three political parties. You have your own policies and practices, which I can understand and I respect. But as councillors of Bradford, have you ever, three of you, thought about setting aside your party politics and coming together as the Muslim representatives to try and sort out the issues that the Muslim community face in Bradford? And they looked at me in bewilderment. I thought, as if I'd said something, I've made them, I sort of caused a fatwa problem for them. But they were very, very happy to follow the party politics, but they were really not interested in looking collectively at some of the issues and challenges that the Muslim community were facing. And to me, that was indicative of how weak we are as a Muslim representative in the political arena.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Let's just slightly move on and reflect on 2024, that general election. We saw 4 pro-Gaza, pro-Palestinian MPs elected. We had in Blackburn, in Dewsbury, in your own constituency, in Leicester South, and in Birmingham, Perry Bar. And since then, we've also seen mass resignations from the main two parties, Labour and the Conservatives, particularly on the Labour side, over Gaza. The independent movement, the Workers' Party, your party now, the Greens. Was the general election last year a significant moment when Muslims suddenly realised the power of the ballot box?
I think to a certain extent people did realise, but unfortunately the failure has been that there's not been the number of people. People like me were expecting, because I was, I follow the election process. I've been actively involved in the election process. And one of my best friends was Jo Cox, who was unfortunately murdered, and I worked very, very closely with her at that time. And she was really good on a number of issues when it came to equality and diversity. I think what surprised me, because I was hoping that the independent movement would have enough members of parliament to actually hold the balance of power. And similarly in local government as well. But unfortunately, I did not expect the Labour Party, and I was a member of the Labour Party for nearly 45 years. And I'm not sure whether you remember or not, we shared a platform on Gaza in Bradford, where I made a speech. And within 6 days of that speech that I made in Bradford on the Labour Party, and particularly on Keir Starmer, I got a letter from the Labour Party saying, you are suspended. And I was thrown out of the Labour Party. And subsequently, I've had lots of members of the Labour Party ask me to join, but I've said no. So I think the problem is that, we've not been able to work together. And that is something that is happening in Kirklees, my
Yeah, but
my
I know
local
you've
authority.
you've been tough on us and said that we can be better. You're like that teacher who says you got a B, but you actually need to be a bit better to get to A.
Yeah,
But
get A,
we did
yeah.
make huge progress. We've got 4 independent MPs, are very highly capable, very talented, representing their constituents and the wider Muslim community. And there are, I think, between 10 and 15 other constituencies that were less than 1,000 votes between the winning person and the not. We've made significant progress in that sense, that demonstrating the first past the post system doesn't necessarily help smaller parties and independents, but we broke that system and we saw change
Yes.
in different parts of the country.
Well, yes, and if you remember, Mohammed, what we've been talking about for years now, you have spoken about it, I've spoken about it, on all your platforms and my platforms as well, that if the Muslim community was to work together collectively, right, with over 3 million Muslims in this country, we could have the balance of power as to who get elected. Not necessarily Muslims. I'm not saying all the candidates should be Muslims. There are a number of very, very good non-Muslim people as well who would be, really good at tackling some of these challenges that, we face at the moment. But what I'd like to see is the Muslim community working collectively together, more like the Jewish community do at the moment, and have been doing for the last, 6, 70, 80, 90 years. That, if we can work together collectively, if we set aside some of our, history and our, religious differences, and I've said this, and you've heard me say this many, many times, outside Dewsbury Town Hall, outside Rochdale Town Hall, when I attended one of your demonstrations there, that, we need to forget कि मैं Indian हूँ, मैं Pakistani हूँ, मैं देवबंदी हूँ, बरेली हूँ, अहले हदीस हूँ. Until and unless we forget that and start looking in a more strategic, wider way, looking at how, going back to your starting point, how Islam is being vilified across all political platforms, as well as the social media and the print media as well, I don't think we'll be able to succeed. And that is my message to young people in particular, that please learn from the mistakes that we have made. Please overcome some of those challenges that we have had to face because of our traditional background. And remember, I don't come from India or Pakistan. I came to this country age of 11 from Africa, right, on my own. So I was sent by my parents over here to come and study and learn Islam. And I unfortunately failed miserably on both of those counts. So, and I remember when I first went to the school, we had an immigrant school, as they used to call it, in Dewsbury. And I went there the first day. And because where I was born, it was a British territory and a British protectorate, my first language was English. So the teachers were shocked to hear me speak English. And the very next day they said to me, so you need to go to another school. And guess which school they suggested I should go to? Thornhill School, which was made famous in the TV documentary, right? And I said to the education officer, no way am I going, this was 1968, no way am I going into that school, because I knew as the first person of color, I knew what my fate would be, because even then, at the age of 11, I was conscious about racism in this country. There was no doubt about that. And I have similar feelings now. Sometimes I walk on the road and I have to look around to see, am I safe? And it's not a happy sort of position to be in at the moment.
No, it's
We've
not.
seen what's been happening to Muslim sisters, across the country. So particularly if they wear the hijab, they become automatic victims. If you're wearing a abaya, a male or female, right? You looked at with suspicion.
Yeah,
And
it's interesting. Yeah, sorry, it's interesting you said that. There is another side to this discussion, and that is we often said that British Muslims should be patriotic, engaged in the democratic process, vote, canvass, support, lobby. but actually be active in all those three parties. What we've seen over the last 2 years, people leaving those parties. Are you suggesting that the mainstream political parties are no longer a home for British Muslims?
Well, at the moment, I don't think they are, because if you look at the policy, the practices, some of the language that is coming out from those parties, if I was a young Muslim male or female, I would not think about going into those political parties at all, because there's nothing that encourages me to join those political parties.
But they're saying, aren't they saying to us? They're saying to us, we've got to. So these are the Muslim candidates, councillors, MPs that you and I know. Many of them are friends of ours. We've known them for many years. They say, we're trying to influence the change within the political system, within those political parties, and that's their reason for staying where they are.
Well, I mean, I was a Labour Party member for 45 years. And in 1976, two of the most significant members of the Labour Party at local government level came to me and says, Iqbal, it's time we had a person from the Asian community, become a councillor, and we promise you that within 5 to 6 years, you'll become the first mayor of Kirklees. But I was a civil servant like you, so I was really not interested in politics. And they guaranteed that, we become the mayor. My concern was not that. My concern was twofold. One is our community's expectation that when you become an elected person, the expectation on you is so substantial that they would not have the same expectations from the non-Asian community person. And I thought, I would not be able to do I would not be able to make a difference in people's lives because I don't have the power. Second thing was that, I felt that there were better people than me who'd maybe do a better job than I could. And that's the reason why I never went into politics. But coming back to your main point, 45 years of being in the Labour Party, fighting for every elections, parliamentary elections and local elections, for whoever the candidate was in my area, from Lord Woolmer to, as I say, with Joe Cox, even Tracy Brabian, who's now the mayor of West Yorkshire, I fought really hard to have her elected as the MP for Batley and Spen at that time. I helped Muhammad Iqbal with his campaign, who's our mayor, who's our MP at the moment.
Yeah.
You feel, deflated at this moment in time. That after all these years and all the fights that we fought, I remember, with the Labour, when I joined the Labour Party at the age of 17, we used to meet at a working men's club in Mount Pleasant in Batley. And, well, no, we didn't, but they decided to meet one day at the working men's club. And they told me to get there, and I thought, should I go, should I not go? Anyway, I plucked up the courage, I went there. And at the door, there was a guy standing there, and he refused me entry because I was black. I was Asian, right? And my white colleagues
let's talk about Iqbal Mohammed. I declared an interest. I hosted that hustings that your community organised with those independent candidates. He was far up and wide the best on that day of the debate, and he's subsequently gone on to do a very good job in Parliament, raised his profile. I found that he brought together Pakistanis and Indians, Brelvis, Jubandis. There was a sense, very much like in Blackburn as well with Adnan Hussain, that they were breaking those old labels and saying, yes, you can be a Brelvi, yes, you can be a Jubandi, and do that in your own homes and in your masajids, but actually in the political arena, we need to be together. And that worked because I thought that was a phenomenal moment.
Yeah, it worked brilliantly. And we saw that work, like you say, in Blackburn, in Leicester, in Batley and Dewsbury. Remember, Batley, Dewsbury are very conservative areas compared to some of the other areas, religiously conservative. So there is hope there. I think if we get the right candidates, I think the community, young people in the community have recognized and realized. And it was the young people in my area who said, enough is enough. We don't want to follow the old model. If you find the right candidate, we're willing to back them regardless of whether they're Indian, Pakistani, Deobandi, Barelvi, Ahle Hadith. So that change has happened. And inshallah, that change will continue to happen. We should be encouraging young people to think like that. And hopefully, if we do, then we will get to the stage where, as we said, the Jewish community have been over the last 70, 80 years. And therefore, I think that is what people like me, we strive for as we move forward. And then I'll give you another example of how we worked back in Dewsbury. Our local hospital wanted a new MRI machine. They were desperate to raise money. The government gave them half the money, but they wanted some more money to get the best of the best. And they contacted me and asked me, if I would help in the appeals. And I thought, why not? This is something that would benefit our community. I then contacted my very good friend Amar Bhatti, who is chair of the Gausia Mosque in Batley. And I said to Amar, I said, look, we as the Gujaratis are going to be doing this. But I think, as a Muslim community, why don't we work together? And we did. And then we for the first time in history, we got the ulama from the Deobandi community and the Barelvi community into a meeting to say, look, we're going back on this project to raise money for the hospital. We would like your blessings. And by the grace of Allah, both the ulamas who were sat in that meeting for the first time supported this campaign. And as a result, we raised £170,000. We created this banner, Muslims for MRI. It was not an organization, it was just a title we gave it. And by the grace of Allah, we raised £170,000 for this campaign, working together as a community. And that, I think, is a sign of how our community is maturing. And it's the young people, men and women, not the traditional people who came from India and Pakistan, who are leading this movement now forward. And it is young people we need to look towards to continue this movement as we move forward, both in terms of political activity as well as community activities as well, such as, if you look at the Muslim community, the amount of money they donate to good causes throughout the whole of the country, and particularly what they did during COVID, is brushed under the carpet. And we need to start shouting, from the rooftop to show those people like Reform and others who say that the Muslim community are all sponges, all drug pushers, all groomers, etc. That no, we do contribute. If you look at the economy of this country, if you look at the economy of West Yorkshire, the figures around £7 or £8 billion are brought into the economy of West Yorkshire by the Muslim and other black and ethnic minority communities.
That's really interesting, because you talk about the economic impact and the economic story that we have of contribution to this country. We've probably got about 15 minutes left, and I just think, where's that time gone, first of all? Often, Iqbal, when you look back at your long years of service, what advice can you give the generation now about how do you tackle this rising racism that we see? Because it wasn't, as I said, I posted something the other day on Facebook, on my official page, and within probably an hour, I probably got 150 messages, and there were just disgusting level of racism in those messages. You're talking to somebody who was the first Muslim who spoke up against child sexual exploitation and grooming gangs, and
yes,
they were so unaware of that the person that they're talking about grooming gangs and accusing, of things, is the very person who was the first. So they don't allow the evidence or the facts get in their way. They're just penetrating that hate. What advice can you give? Because people are feeling vulnerable. They're feeling lonely. They're feeling scared. As you said, some of our elders, like you think of Muhammad Salim in Birmingham, who was stabbed and killed on his way to Masjid. You think about the brother, now his name's gone from my mind, in Rotherham, who'd gone to Fajr, and he was stabbed. Yeah. He was stabbed and he was left to die. Our elders are feeling vulnerable as well. And I just another shot. I was having a conversation with a friend whose dad has always gone to Fajr. Past couple of weeks he's been abused on the way, and the family trying to get him to stop going now and saying, look, it's not safe unless one of us goes with you, or that you just pray at home. And he's saying, no, I'm going to continue to go. What advice do you give those people who are feeling vulnerable? Sorry, you went on a bit there.
Can I say, Allah give the brother strength. I can understand his vulnerability. As I say, after all these years in this country, I'm now looking behind me to see who's following me, and am I safe now? I've never had to do that before. So yeah, we are all feeling vulnerable, and that is something that, as I say, the institutions have not really helped to try and overcome that. But in terms of what we need to do, and this is again goes back to the point I raised about the contribution we make to the economy now, or we and everything else. We've always been taught, don't let the left hand know what your right hand is doing. I think we now need to change that narrative. We need to be more proactive in telling the world of some of the work that we're doing that benefits the other communities as well. And I think that's where, if you look at the number of organizers, employers we have in West Yorkshire, for example, we employ thousands of people in our various businesses, right? And that brings in millions of pounds into the economy of West Yorkshire. But nobody's talking about that, and this is something we need to be really talking about. And I think a lot of our young people are now into social media. There were a lot of media companies that have grown up over the last few years, and particularly our young people are much more proactive in social media as well. But I think we need to have a campaign where young people can actually put on the social media platform some of the some, if not all, of the good things that we are doing. And I say to all, I work with a lot of businesses in this area, and I say to them now, and they all, mashallah, contribute a huge amount of money, particularly in Ramadan, to good causes in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Africa as well. So what I'm saying to them now is, certainly to continue to do so, but leave a proportion, 10-15% of that donation that you make in Ramadan or outside Ramadan, and please make sure that you give it to local people in this country, in your region, in your area. All these schools, they are desperate for people to give them some help, financial help, because they can't even buy books. And we have kids in our schools who can't even have food. So, we have this store called Abu Bakr store in Batley, which has opened up, and they are supporting the local primary schools with all sorts of support that they can provide to make sure. But the thing is, in the past, they would do it quietly. And I'm encouraging them to actually now go out there publicly and shout about it. And when we did this campaign for the MRI scan, the chair of the trust said to me, Iqbal, the day when we presented the first cheque of £100,000, he says, if you monitor the social media the day before, and after the publicity around giving £100,000, because we raised 170, but we did a presentation of £100,000, the day after the £100,000 was given and was put on the social media platform, some of the narrative actually changed to the positive.
Makes a difference.
It makes a difference. So I think we need to start doing more of that. I've been, as you know, I represent His Majesty the King, and have done so since 2006. I was the first male Muslim to be appointed in that role by Her Majesty the Queen in 2006. Sorry, first male Muslim in the north of England to be appointed to this position.
Can you just, for those of our viewers don't know what that is, can you just explain what the role is? What's it? Describe it, and then tell us how you were selected.
I don't know how I was selected. I mean, I've been told it's a sort of secret process. But I was asked whether I would become the deputy lieutenant. The deputy lieutenant represents, every county has a Lord Lieutenant who is the official representative of the monarch. So he was a queen at that time. And when members of the royal family visit your area, if they are not able to attend any events and gatherings that are taking place in your community, then you represent His Majesty, or Her Majesty in my case, and now His Majesty. So, for example, if you come to Murfield on Remembrance Day, Murfield, in the town of Murfield, is one of the biggest Remembrance Day celebrations service in this country. And I kid you not, the number of young people who attend that service is phenomenal, right? And I've been attending that service, the Remembrance service, in my uniform. I have a uniform, a military uniform that I wear on behalf of the monarch every year for the last 10 years. And I'm immensely proud of it. And I must say the people of Murphy give me an enormous amount of respect. And I enjoy doing that. And I attend various events and I promote businesses. So, when the Prince and Princess of Wales, when they wanted to come to Bradford, and I got a message saying they would like to meet young Muslim people in particular, I helped organize the whole day's trip. And it was because I was very closely associated with My Lahore, and My Lahore is run by young people who are very, very articulate, who are very committed to much more importantly, they're very, very committed to putting back into the community. I made sure that, the Prince and Princess of Wales, which is William and Kate, went to my Lahore and visited my Lahore, and they actually made, milkshakes there.
They did,
both
yeah.
of them.
And they had some
Yeah, they
food
made
as well.
And
they
had
enjoyed
some
the food,
amazing
yeah.
food. Oh yeah,
It's a
because I
beautiful,
organized the whole.
it's a beautiful. Sorry, it's a beautiful restaurant. It's one of my favourites, and they do some amazing work, and we salute them. So my Lahore, there are many other restaurants as well. But I think we've got about 5 minutes left, and I'm just thinking reflections. What did you learn about yourself as you look back at your 50 years of service in this country in various disguises, a civil servant, a public servant, representing the monarch in this very important role as the Deputy Lord Lieutenant? What have you learned about yourself over those years?
Oh, have I learned anything? I mean, what I've learned is that, obviously, all these years of hard work, it will never stop because, we are constantly facing challenges. And, it saps your energy as you get older. But lucky Mervani, I'm still continuing to fight. I'm still continuing to battle. And I'm still continuing to challenge. And, we now got a new challenge from reform, which we need to somehow, counter. And one of the things I think I sent you a message. It was probably a facetious message, as far as some people are concerned, is that if we can't beat them, then one way might be to join them. Now, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And 45 years of being in the Labour Party has taught me that it hasn't worked as far as I'm concerned. And as you alluded to, that we've got lots of people who are still in the Labour Party in the hope that they will be able to change their politics. But until and unless we really, really get the reins of power and influence, we've seen that it's not going to work. And the only way you can do that is to try and make sure that we really, really get into the heart of the mechanisms of some of these, the political structures that we have.
Yeah.
Unless we get to do that, we won't get anywhere.
I've got one final question, and that is looking to the global politics. I would have loved to maybe get you back again and we can talk about this around Donald Trump. He just completed his first year of the second term. I know over the years, me and you have been doing programming where we've talked about the possibility of Donald Trump winning. Do you remember 2016, those programs?
Yes, I do very well.
We did, and he did win. And he served that first term. He's back again for his second term. What's your reflections on Donald Trump as President of the United States?
Well, I think everybody, a person of color, whether you're in this country or anywhere in the world, will say that he's proved to be what he is. In my opinion, he's racist. And his comments about the Super Bowl and the guy who performed during the halftime sort of performances, he's called them an idiot. He's called them useless. And I think he has a real problem with people of color. I somehow can't understand. If you remember when we did that program, there was a Muslim sister from America on the program who was campaigning for Donald Trump at that time. And we just could not understand. I still can't understand. And this time around, we had people in Michigan from the Muslim community who now say they regret supporting Donald Trump.
Even that Muslim, sorry, just going to say very quickly, that Muslim woman that we spoke to, do you remember? Your face dripped, my face dropped, not dripped, but
exactly,
dropped.
Yeah.
She actually messaged me after the Muslim ban came in the first term, and she was like, I deeply regret what I've just done.
Oh, did she? Right.
Yeah, she did, yeah, to be fair to her.
Obviously, the Muslim community from Michigan did not learn from that first mistake. And, we still have, unfortunately, it's like reform. We're getting so many people from our community joining reform. And I put this message out the other day, although, as I say, I'm not on social media. I would like to get 100,000 Muslims to join reform. It's free for now. But if you get 5,000 of that 100,000 becoming active, we may be able to change, Nigel Farage. I think he probably realized that he can't get what he wants. If there are 5,000 active Muslim members of the Reform Party, he might have to go and set up another party. Now,
I doubt it's not worked before, as you said, and I doubt it'll ever work as well. And obviously, everybody's entitled to their
everybody's entitled to set up their own
about how
party.
they vote.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I suppose my final question. I've asked you this once before, and I think it's the only time I've left you speechless, and I just suppose want to ask it again. You know, Allah give you health, Allah give you a long life so that you can continue to do the amazing work that you do. But how would you like to be remembered? Because when I look back at your decades of service, and I honestly say this from my heart, you've been a towering figure, you've been a pioneer, you've been somebody who I looked up to for all the work that you've done for our community. And we don't often get the chance to say this to people when they are present in the dunya. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do, Iqbal Bhai, for the Muslim community, for the wider community, bringing communities together. How would you like to be remembered?
I just hope that people remember me, you know, that all my life I've tried to do the best for the Muslim community and for our people, you know, and that's it. I'm really grateful to somebody like you, who I have a great deal of respect for, who says those kind words to me. As I say, it's not deserved. I think every one of us should aspire to try and do the best for the Muslim community. And the more people like you are around who can recognize that and encourage young people.
Well, I think when we write the story of the British Muslim community, sir, you will be at the heart of that story. And we pray that Allah gives you a very long life, and maybe continue to get your love and your work and the lives that you inspire every day. Iqbal Bhai, thank you so much for being my special guest tonight here on.
Thank you very kindly for inviting me. As I say, I don't deserve it.
Allah bless you. Allah protect you. Thank
you
so much. Thank you so much. Iqbal Bhai there, the Deputy Lord Lieutenant of West Yorkshire. And we didn't even talk about visa and all of that. But anyway, see, I'm in Lancashire and he's in Yorkshire. Anyway, the Battle of the Roses. Right, thank you so much for joining us. Just give you a heads up. Next week is our final programme. Got you. It's a final programme at this time. So inshallah, we'll come to you next week at 7 o'clock. And then inshallah, when Ramadan starts, we'll be coming to you at 3 o'clock in the afternoon before, and presenting in the afternoon because of Takbeer TV's live broadcast. From me, Mohammed Shafiq, and the whole team at Takbeer TV in our studios in Manchester, thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you same time next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.